Thanks for listening to Uncle Sam's Soccer Podcast, keeping you up to date with the latest in American soccer. And don't forget to subscribe.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Uncle Sam's Soccer Podcast. I'm Steven Jodarand.
And I'm Jake Watroba.
On today's episode, we have our good friend Jason at Home Sweet Soccer to join us to talk about USL and COVID-19. Plus, the NBA is thinking about playing into late summer. How screwed is American soccer?
Listeners, follow us on Twitter at UncSamSoccerPod. We always enjoy your feedback and comments, so continue to send them in. And don't forget, you can find the show on any major podcast platform. Now, let's get to today's show.
Alrighty, Jake, we are back. And boy, we actually got some cool stuff for you listeners. We'll talk about some sports. We got our good friend Jason joining us, talking about the impact that the coronavirus, COVID-19, is going to have on USL. Plus, I want to get to something really interesting regarding the NBA and how screwed MLS is. As Jake mentioned, at Uncle Sam Soccer Pod, at Jake Watroba, at Steven Jodarand. How we doing, Jake?
I'm hanging in there. How are you doing?
Good. Let's get to it. So, ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski has reported the NBA is looking to return in the summer, which is really interesting, to say the least. At the moment, it seems like nobody has a real clear timeline. Quite frankly, everything is so fluid. It is so fluid that nobody really knows what's going on. The Chinese league plans to come back here relatively soon, and that league was shut down for multiple weeks. So it is a good jumping off point regarding the Chinese league and its return. And we're looking at 2 to 3 months, meaning that the NBA, the NHL, MLB will all come in the middle of summer at some point, right? And think about this. You have the NFL draft coming up here in April, and some GMs will have wanted to push it. The NFL seems to continue on, but I suspect that you could see, could you imagine this, Jake, the NFL draft going to one round a day for 6 straight days, starting, Monday? You have the first round, or if you want to put it on the weekend. You know how many eyeballs would be glued to the TV? The NFL could dominate for an entire week.
I think that is a good idea up until about round 3 or 4. And then I think you would, I don't know. I guess in today's climate, if you will, I think it's a good idea potentially. But I think that under normal circumstances, after about the 3rd round, I don't think many people care about the NFL draft.
I think you'd be surprised with the TV ratings. But so now you have that. Think about it. You have the NHL Stanley Cup. You have the NBA Finals. You have the Masters in September. You have the Kentucky Derby in September. Never mind that you have the Premier League, the Bundesliga, Serie A, Champions League, all going to try to wrap up by the middle of summer. Oh, by the way, then you have the NFL and college football all starting August, September, right? That's when people get in that football gear. Then you got MLS, USL, US Soccer, US Open Cup, CONCACAF Champions League, Leagues Cup, Champions Cup. They're going to get buried in a massive 7-week period where MLS, you couldn't talk about MLS. You just couldn't care for it. I mean, how screwed is MLS?
I mean, I think they're screwed in the fact that they're probably going to have to go up against, unless the NHL and NBA cancels their season, which it doesn't sound like the NBA is going to do so.
Well, it'd be dumb. It'd be dumb on both leagues to cancel their season.
I think there's a more than snowball's chance that the NHL could just cancel their season.
That's be the dumbest reason ever. It'd simply be stupid.
I think the way the ice in these arenas.
Oh my God, ice! Right, and ice is any better in May when the cup gets hoisted?
You talk to NHL players about what it's like to play in Tampa Bay in May or June.
Do they want a
complain
paycheck?
about it.
And they want a paycheck for a couple $1 million?
I'm just saying the ice.
Do they want their cup?
Ice matters. The ice matters.
Do you think the name on the Stanley Cup means something more than some terrible ice argument?
I'm just saying the league could cancel it just because of it's harder to have good ice in July in Anaheim or LA.
Let's lose millions of dollars.
They've already lost. I mean,
Let's just lose millions of more dollars when we could shorten the season up. We could have a fantastic Stanley Cup. People will watch. Absolutely, people will watch. You're going to have huge TV numbers, and you're going to cancel the season for stupid ice reasons? Come on. That is soft.
I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that people are just going to watch because it's back.
Oh,
and you're going up against the NBA
then
playoffs.
You clearly don't understand how bored people have been without sports.
Yeah, but if you're going to give them other options, their eyeballs aren't going to be tuned to the National Hockey League. That's just my that's my take. I mean, there are certain parts of this country that care about the NHL, but there are large parts of this country that don't give a rat's ass about it.
Yeah. But let me tell you one thing. This is an unprecedented times people are going to watch. If you have a month of August or a month of June when you have so many different sports, and I forgot to add that you have baseball at some point return to play, so add that to the mix, right? MLS and MLB are the two leagues that are most screwed by the coronavirus because they have the opportunity to kind of coast here late summer. That's the two talking points. That's the two leagues that are ongoing that people can get cheap tickets or somewhat cheap tickets to. Now you're going to have a plethora of sports going on. If the NHL cancels or if the NBA cancels or if one of these leagues cancels, it is soft and it's moronic because people will want to sit down and watch live sports because we're going to go for at least a month here before sports returns. At least. And that could go even further because you need to have the opportunity to give these players a chance to warm up. You need a mini training camp / preseason. So MLS is going to get buried. The question is, what is MLS going to do? What are they going to do to help themselves? Are they going to extend the season? Are they going to go to this European calendar that has been floated out there?
Well, I think at the very least they're going to have to push MLS Cup out to December. I think that's the very least they could do, so they're not forced to play, twice every week or twice every other week. I think they owe it to the players. I know MLS doesn't like the idea anymore of playing the climax of their season in mid-December. We've seen that where they've Toronto has hosted MLS Cup and it's been super cold and things like that. But I think they're going to have to, and maybe this is the start of the discussion of do we shift the calendar. I know the NBA is having those discussions of do we shift the calendar so the league starts on Christmas. So I think for all the people who think that the calendar needs to be moved to match the FIFA calendar or the European calendar, I think this might open up the door a little bit for MLS to have those discussions internally.
Talking about sports at Uncle Sam's Soccer Pod, we are not going to talk much about what book to read or what Netflix show you want to watch, because I think there's a real interesting silver lining here for sports is what is going to be the big difference come in the next few years. What calendars are going to get shifted around? Will we see the NBA champion be crowned in late summer versus the beginning of summer? Will that be the big change? Will we see MLS flip? Huh? Are we going to see the NBA as a whole drastically change where the draft suddenly happens after free agency? I mean, there's so much to talk about, so much interesting stuff that I think MLS needs to be very strategic on what they do, because the longer this goes on, the less likely I think they're going to be able to squeeze their entire season and have the off season come during the winter. It will be simply too much for players, for the coaching staff, and if they want to get the U.S. Open Cup, Leagues Cup, all these different cups in, it's just not going to be plausible. They need to shift the calendar around. And the question is, at what point do they sit there and say, let's just try to finish out the season? Because, Jake, the MLS has played 2 games. Now you're going to go, what, close to 6 weeks without play, without training camp? There's no way that they can jump right into the games. You almost need a whole new offseason.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to need a few weeks once this coronavirus pandemic thing has died down a little bit and they're given the go-ahead to at least play games. You know, it's going to start with behind closed doors, right? They're not going to go from no games to selling out stadiums again. It's going to be a few matches behind closed doors. So I would think they need at least 2 or 3 weeks to get back up to speed a little bit before we're going to see games. So if they start playing preseason May, you're probably not going to see games until the beginning of June.
Alrighty, let's get to Jason.
Joining us now on the show is our good friend. He is the Stephen A. Smith of American Soccer. You can follow him at Home Sweet Soccer. It is Jason. Jason, what is going on?
Every time I hear that, I feel like I need to immediately come on the mic and start yelling something. Like, I'll tell you what, Max Kellerman. I'll tell you right now, Shea Salinas should be on the U.S. national team. I'll tell you that right now, Max Kellerman.
You gotta start using big words and stuff like that too.
It is atrocious, an abomination, and despicable that Shea Salinas is not on the national team. I'll say it right now. I'll say it in the discussion.
And then you gotta take a shot at Dallas Cowboys too.
Right.
Right.
Well, they've been practicing social distancing for the past 20 years when we talk about playoffs.
Well, shots fired.
Well, you never run out of, when Walmart put up all their Dallas Cowboys stuff, it was a nice restocking of toilet paper right there.
I was going to say, I know people were grabbing that.
Hey, Jason, what sport currently? Obviously, April's a massive sports month, right? You have pretty much everything going on you possibly want, apart from football. Well, I guess with the XFL. But what sport do you miss most?
It's tough. Obviously, I miss that we're not having NCAA tournament, and not for the fact I don't give a damn about the committee making money and all that, but for some of those kids, it's like literally 80% of those kids, that's the highlight of their life, right? Like that's their chance for them to be on television, to make a Cinderella run, to be a part of something huge. After this, they're going to, most of them are going to be accountants and real estate agents, or, if we all live. But so for that tournament to not happen, that kind of sucks.
Yeah, I don't know, yeah. Jake. Do you miss? I mean, are you a big March Madness guy?
Yes and no. So over the last few years, I've actually found college basketball to be kind of unwatchable. The more I've gotten into the NBA, but I will say
how are you like a Euro snob at basketball? What in the world?
I don't know. Well, here's the thing.
Defending's trash. That would have never happened in the NBA. It's absolutely trash.
I actually don't think it's the defending that's trash. I actually think it's the other side of the ball that's kind of trash. Here's the thing. I've grown up as a University of Minnesota fan. We've never been good in my life outside of the one Final Four appearance they've made that was taken away from them because they cheated on tests in the mid-'90s. Mm-hmm. And I was about 5 or 6 years old when that happened. But outside of that, they've never really been good. I think the deepest run I've seen the Golden Gophers make in the NCAA tournament is to the second round.
Well, they were good this year, right?
No, they were not. They were
okay.
A low 500 team, unless they would have went on a run in the Big Ten tournament before it was canceled.
Maryland then, but yeah.
Yeah. I will say, though, for as much as I've just taken a dump on college basketball, I will say the first like that Thursday and Friday, that first round of the NCAA tournament, and then even that Saturday and Sunday, it's probably the best 4 days of sports, I think.
Yeah, and
of the year. I think that's the best time. There's like nothing that comes close to it. There's nothing that comes close to like a 13 seed beating a four.
Yeah, and I went to a school that happened. Like I went to Georgia State, and so we beat Baylor. I think we were like a 15 seed or 14 seed. Baylor is like a 3. And a game-winning 3 from the coach's son, and the coach
I heard that game.
Yeah, who already has a torn ACL because he celebrated winning the Sun Belt tournament to get into March Madness, is on a stool the whole game and falls off his stool when his son makes the game-winning shot. Like, come on, that's just fun to watch no matter who you are. So I think that's what I miss, because you know what, with NBA, like, all those are great games, but we're going to get those. March Madness, like those specific kids, we're not going to get them, right? Like, a lot of these kids are graduating or going to the pros, right, and then that's it. They never got a chance to play.
Do you think the league, like, we'll get to this, right? And Jake and I in the first segment, we talked about this, but the plans is for pretty much every league across the globe is to somehow resume, and whether that is to shorten the season, cut straight to the playoffs, whatever that may be, it's the plans are to resume. Do you think they make up this tournament? Because it doesn't seem like, oh, this is just 3 weeks and we come back. This seems to be an extended period of time of at least 6 to 8 weeks before you get some sort of games of any sport to come back.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, with college, it's tough because, you have to correlate that with, graduation and finals and stuff, right? So for them, I'm sure it's just like for players, when they know that they're going to March Madness, they probably have some kind of agreement with their classes and everything. And I don't know if that's happening now, especially because they can't be on campus. So I think, I don't think they're going to make up this tournament. I kind of think that because even though everyone thinks we're going to get back in Easter, that ain't happening. And so they're just going to have to push it back, or they're just not going to have to do it this year. They're going to have to cancel it.
Right. So let me get your take on this. So the potential here, right? NFL drafts at some point in April, right? But let's disregard that for a moment. You have the European leagues that want to at some point resume, and that's going to extend into the summer. You'll have MLS at some point that will extend into summer. But then you have the Masters in September, the Kentucky Derby in September. You have the NBA playoffs, Stanley Cup playoffs at some point in the summer. Then you have MLB that will start their summer too. How screwed do you think U.S. soccer is when you have all these other leagues come into the summer as well, and then you have football right around the corner?
So, I mean, but it's not that much different, right? Because the NFL draft still at the same time. The NBA finals, or, there's going to be NBA going on in June, which is when the finals would be. I think the big thing is people are going to be so relieved to have sports. That's going to be the focus, right? Like, right. I haven't seen the NBA in 3 months. I'm so glad I get to watch it again. Whereas in the summers, where it's usual and sports are going, people will be like, oh, damn, it's summer. There's no sports on. Oh, MLS is on here. Let me watch this. And I think now you're not going to get that. It's going to be like, no, I haven't seen baseball or basketball in months, or, they're going to focus on that. That's going to be the big thing. But especially like you said, if they jump directly into playoffs or however that works, it just becomes a lot more of a big deal just because people have been yearning for it.
Right, but you don't think that the way it seems, and China's probably the best estimate we have, where the Chinese basketball league there took close to, what is it, Jake, 3 months off?
Probably 3 or 5. Well, now they pushed their start back to May, so it's probably, 4 months off now?
Yeah, so, I mean, it doesn't seem likely that the NBA, NHL is going to get done by the middle of the summer. It seems like this is going to go into August at least. And my big concern is, well, there's so much sports going on. Why am I going to take time to watch an MLS game?
Yeah, I agree with you, especially if NBA goes into fall, which would make sense, and then they just start December. I think, they kind of own December, so on Christmas Day, maybe that's when you start the season. But yeah, so when you put it like that, I agree. It is going to be tough to get people on board with watching MLS, especially when it's traditionally during a time there's not really any other sports going on in the summer.
I also think, though, that when you're looking at MLS fans versus fans of the NBA or NHL or Major League Baseball, I don't think that if you took that Venn diagram and said MLS fans and then took the circles of MLB or NHL or NBA, I don't know if those two circles overlap over all that much. Like, I'm an MLS fan, and I'm an NBA fan, I'm an NHL fan, I'm an MLB fan. I tend to think that I might be in a minority of somebody who pays attention to all four of those leagues. I don't know. Do you agree with that, Jason?
Yeah, So then I think the question is, what happens with European soccer?
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where you have soccer pubs. Most of the TVs that are on soccer games, like if they're on Big Fox or Big NBC or Big ESPN, they usually follow some kind of a European soccer game before that, right? And so that becomes the question then. If there's European soccer, if they say, all right, we're just going to, the season's going to start back up in May and we're going to run it till August, and then we're not going to start the Premier League and all these other leagues until October, December or something, then it becomes a thing to where maybe you're in trouble, because now you're not just competing with, the big four, you're also competing with European soccer. Now, if European soccer decides to scrap everything, and I don't know what they're doing with Champions League and all that good stuff, and then MLS might have a chance, right? If it kind of separates itself as one of the only leags playing.
If I were a Liverpool fan,
and they would benefit. Like, it would be the first time that they benefit not being on the FIFA schedule.
Yeah. If I were
which I don't care. Y'all call it a hot take all you want. I'm fine with them not being on the FIFA schedule. I think what they've done, what the schedule was supposed to be this year, was one of the best fits that they've had, because you're not playing soccer in Toronto in December, in January, in February.
That's the big criticism.
There would be way too many canceled games in Colorado and Toronto and Portland and Seattle and Vancouver. It's not happening.
Too cold.
Yeah, well, Vancouver you could play because of the dome, but yeah, it's too cold and it's too much snow. Too much snow.
You're right. I find it fascinating because the Premier League, what I was reading up is that their TV contract isn't a guarantee, so they have to make up those games in order to get the money. So it's very unlikely, because Liverpool obviously before coronavirus kind of went into a massive slump, right? But still an unbelievable season that they are accomplished. They're 2 games away, or I guess 6 points away from mathematically winning the league. How shitty would it be if I guess the FA said, yeah, let's just scrap it. Liverpool, sorry, you don't win your trophy that you've been dying to win for decades.
Yeah, I mean, it's all going to be about the money.
Yep, follow the money.
Yep.
So or go ahead, Jake.
I guess real quick, I just think this is the timing of all this, though, I think might actually be perfect for these leagues to kind of get lined up with the World Cup in 2022, given that it's going to be played in November, and that maybe this kind of pushes leagues to get on I guess, if you will, an MLS calendar or a U.S. soccer calendar for the next, I don't know, year or two.
Yeah, but Jake, there's a problem with that. You have the European Championships that were originally rumored. I remember I saw rumors for this that they wanted to push it into the December time frame before coronavirus really got into what it is today. That they originally wanted to put that December, which your thought would make sense. But now that the European Championships are next summer, it'd be I don't see how leagues would be able to play that MLS calendar season leading up into that 2022 World Cup, which is going to be played in December. I mean, I guess it's kind of pick your poison, right? When you want players to be leaving, it would probably approximately be about the same point of the season.
Yeah, and then again, it comes down to the money. What's making more money, the federations for the national teams or the club teams?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Just a theory I threw out there. I don't know.
I don't hate it. I mean, it would.
Maybe they do like a Liga MX thing where you have 2 split seasons, where you have like a spring and fall season or something to that effect. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say it's convenient that coronavirus popped up, but I just think that maybe this is ironically something that gets everybody on the MLS schedule calendar, and that
what are you, a City fan?
I don't know. It's just something that popped into my head. There's so many layers to what's going on right now, and it's going to be kind of interesting to see how this eventually plays out over the next 18 months or so.
Right, and simply put, right, we honestly don't know what's going to happen. We still don't know where COVID-19 is going, how bad it's going to be, Is it going to come back in the second wave, as some people have said? Is it not? Is the summer months going to kind of kill it off? I mean, we simply don't know, and the three of us are definitely not experts in this field. However, Jason, you are an expert regarding more on the USL side of things. We talked about the impact MLS has had. Obviously, that's the big league here in the States, but I would assume this really screws over USL more so than it does MLS.
In multiple ways. This is, and I've said before, I think lower league soccer in general gets hit by this harder than maybe any other sport. And it's for multiple reasons. So with USL, you have teams, some teams are sharing field with a baseball team, right? Minor league baseball team. So then what happens then when the season, is changed? You have to work on the scheduling of, well, when can we actually play home games? When do we play away games? You have situations like USL League 2 is college kids pretty much, right? They're pretty much made up of college kids. And now what happens, right? The league was supposed to start, I think, the first week in May, something around there, sometime in May. Does it still start on time? Are kids not going to want to play in it because they're like, hey, I haven't had time to really prepare? It's one to have the season delayed. It's another to not be able to work out with a team, right? People are quarantined. You can't leave. You can do workout maybe at home or if you have a gym in your apartment complex, but you're not getting that team chemistry. Coaches can't scout. You can't, have camp. It's going to be a lot. And even today, the NPSL, they canceled their 2020 seasons. We've seen teams for USL League 2, like Asheville City, they pulled out for the 2020 season. And this is hurting them. And then you look at the financial side of it, right? That's a big part of it too, because, these owners, they have to have a minimum of, I think, $10 million in net worth to own a team, right? But $10 million, you say it costs, let's say $3 million to run this team, right? If you can't, these owners are depending on ticket sales, merch, more than these, bigger teams that have these TV deals, that have these jersey deals, that have, other endorsements, right? This is more of community-based. We need butts in the seats. We need merch. That ESPN Plus money, it's great for USL to have gotten it, but it's definitely not enough to hold over owners. And so that's the biggest issue with them, because the longer this delay happens, the more owners are going to say, hey, look, I can't lose $2 million this year in revenue, right? I can't do it. I can't keep up shop and pay for employees and players and stuff if we're not going to be playing. And so I think the next month is going to be extremely important to see what happens.
And Jason, as controversial as this may be, do we have a U.S. Open Cup later this summer, or do you think that's going to be canceled?
No, I think it's going to be canceled. I do. I like, as much as I want it, as much as U.S. Open Cup is like one of my favorite, probably outside of CONCACAF, just because CONCACAF is so ridiculous.
Yeah.
U.S. Open Cup is probably my favorite tournament. I just don't see how it happens. And if it does happen, I think that it's not going to be the same format. I think they're going to jump and skip into the later rounds. I think the amateur teams are going to get screwed out of it. I think it's just going to be too much. The U.S. soccer doesn't even put much into that
Sure.
with everything, right? They don't do anything to get any kind of sponsorship deals. They don't do any kind of marketing. I don't see it happening, and it'd be great if it could, but like I said, when you have a tournament that's made up of teams for a league that just canceled, for a USL League 2 team that has teams pulling out, now you're going to have to pull those teams that might have been playing in the US Open Cup out. Who do you replace them with? How does the traveling work? Where are they playing? You have to reschedule everything. Unless the leagues actually start back up in 2 weeks or by May 10th, whatever it was, where they can start training again in 2 weeks and then they can, play in May. I don't see this tournament happening.
Wonder where that extra Champions League spot's going to go now. I mean, is this going to hand it over to MLS and?
Yeah, or what they do, maybe they do something like, I think what, like in the Caribbean, right? They have the Caribbean Championship Cups, and then maybe they do a thing to where They take the third place team for MLS, and then they throw them into that tournament. And if they can win that tournament, they get the spot or something.
Oh yeah, that'd be interesting. On the same lines, do you think CONCACAF Champions League gets somehow wrapped up?
Yeah, I mean that's another great question, because the longer into the season, and now that if seasons are going to be shorter, a lot of these club managers, especially when you look at who's crazy boy out there in Club America, he's not going to let his players play midweek games for CONCACAF Champions League in June, July, right? That's not happening, because he already doesn't care as much about the tournament, and he's trying to win his league title. And if the season's shortened, the games matter more. So, yeah, I think it does affect that big time.
See, I'm of the belief that I think the CONCACAF Champions League will roll on, but I think U.S. Open Cup, Campeones Cup, Leagues Cup, whatever cup we're doing with Liga MX now, I think all that stuff's getting canceled.
I'm okay with the Leagues Cup and the Campeones Cup getting canceled for the season.
How dare you call yourself an American soccer fan? How dare you?
I'd much rather have the U.S. Open Cup. Give me that. Let me tell you, my best soccer memory was at the 2016 U.S. Open Cup final between FC Dallas and the New England Revolution. By far, my best U.S. soccer memory.
Been to every U.S. Open Cup loss the Philadelphia Union had, all three, driving 6 hours for two of them, and then flying to Houston to see the other. So, yeah, as much as the heartbreak as U.S. Open Cup has given me, I don't make that kind of dedication without loving that tournament. So I'm with you. I hope that it doesn't, but it's really hard for me to see, because it's across so many different leagues, because there's amateur teams involved, because the League Two teams, are they supposed to just go into the tournament, without ever meeting up? It's just it's too tough, I think, to put it on, unless they, like I said, jump into a fourth round and just say, hey, we're only going to have, or a fifth round, whatever it is, where they say, hey, we're only going to have USL and MLS teams this year, which would, I think, be caused enough of a ruckus to where they would just cancel it at that point.
Yeah, and I'm also of the opinion that MLS owners don't really want their players to participate, or their teams to really participate in it. Right. I also think there's this American I really don't know how to describe this, but this isn't like the U.S. Open Cup isn't in like your traditional American leagues. You know what I mean? Where you're not gonna, like, baseball, like the best baseball or NBA would be the two leagues you could look at where it's like, oh, the pro team's playing the minor league team. Like that doesn't happen in either of those leagues. So I think you have these American owners who are like, I don't understand why we're doing this. This is just stupid. Why don't we just keep everything in house here with the league? So
yeah, I mean, if we had a federation that was actually
knew what it was doing,
capable of doing anything, they would put the resources to show that this tournament's beautiful, because it gives exposure to the lower leagues. It shows players who you might see playing for, Florida Soldiers, and then all of a sudden they're in MLS 2 years. You go, yeah, remember, like, he got his shine because he scored a hat trick against, a USL team, and then they got to play Chicago Fire or something like that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it sucks. It because outside of Corona, U.S. Open Cup deserves a lot more. And it, like you said, no other league does that. And this is like something that we should be. That's what I love about American soccer and culture. And it's just like, this is something that we should be emphasizing.
Yeah, it's the NCAA. Best way I can describe it, it's the NCAA tournament of soccer, if you will. And I mean, you make a great point of putting someone on like with some of these lower league teams who you have these teams or players who show out in this tournament. I mean, let's face it, Steph Curry never goes off for Davidson in that NCAA tournament. What was it, 10, 12 years ago? I mean,
yeah, stock rises. You're
that's right.
right.
That's right. You were 100. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's just something crazy to think about. But Jason, thanks again for joining us today. Tell our listeners where we can find you on Twitter and where we can find your podcast.
You can find me on Twitter at Home Sweet Soccer. Me and Ira Jersey, we also host a podcast called League One Fun. You can find that on Twitter at League #1 and Fun. We're on the BGN network. That's bgn.fm. And yeah, I've said it once and I'll say it a million times. Alan Gordon's the greatest sub of all time. And I'll tell you what, Max Kellerman, it's a shame that no one takes any time to acknowledge that.
Okay, well, there you have it. The Stephen A. Smith to Soccer right then and there. Max Kellerman, Alan Gordon, greatest sub.
Who's your Max Kellerman, by the way, Jason?
I really don't have one. I guess it's Ira, just because he's unfortunately the person that has to hear me yell the most.
Well, there you have it. Listeners, you can follow us on Twitter at UncSamSoccerPod. Follow Jason at HomeSweetSoccer, and follow League One Fun. You can follow myself at Jake Watroba and Steven Jodarand at Steven Jodarand. For Jason, for Steven, I'm Jake. We'll talk to you guys next time. Deuces.